The Aura Trio, Xerneas, Yveltal, and Zygarde, represent fascinating aspects of world mythology. The trinity of life, death, and balance is without a doubt depicted through these three Pokémon. However, there is more to them than meets the eye, a contrast between their powers within the world of Pokémon, their designs, and their uses within the games that we can explore in mythology and gaming. Hello everyone, and welcome! Today, we'll be starting our three-part journey where we look at the origins and myths that inspire the three legendaries of Pokémon X and Pokémon Y, Xerneas, Yveltal, and Zygarde. Starting with the Xerneas, who was introduced in Gen 6, this Pokémon depicts not only Norse myths, but other world mythologies as well. Before we fully look at the myths and legends, let's first explore Pokémon X and how we meet the legendary Pokémon of life, Xerneas, a pure fairy type with the ability Fairy Aura. This ability allows the user to increase all fairy type moves by 33%, magnifying not only their moves, but their opponents as well. Xerneas is presented as a stag with massive and colorful antlers, which light up with their attacks in their active form. Nearing the end of Pokémon X, the player goes through Team Flare's HQ, finding the legendary Pokémon in a rather unusual state, encountering a barren tree with a distinct X seemingly gouged into the trunk. It suddenly transforms into the Pokémon of life, giving the player a chance to catch the legendary creature, helping them along their journey. This introduction to Xerneas and its design gives us some idea as to what mythologies may have inspired it. An ash I know there stands. Yggdrasil is its name, a tall tree showered with shining loam. From there come the dews that drop in the valleys. It stands forever green over Auror's well. First is the most obvious of the connections. Xerneas and its dormant state portrays a tree. Its Pokédex states that it can share eternal life and that it has slept for 1,000 years as a tree before its revival. We'll go over the revival bit in part 2, but seeing Xerneas in the form of a tree as well as being the Pokémon of life, we can assume this representation is closely tied to the world tree within Norse mythology. Yggdrasil, as the Northmen and later the Saxons would call it, is an ash tree that holds the 9 realms of the universe between its branches, trunk, and roots. These realms include Midgard, Helheim, Asgard, and many more. The tree of Yggdrasil holds all kinds of life along its branches and trunk. The gods and even the wildlife roam about the tree itself, meeting and scavenging what they can from the tree. Being the Pokémon of life, it is fitting to have Xerneas be presented as the world tree, where life flourishes all throughout it. Though, in its dormant state, Xerneas looks more like an American hornbeam or a sycamore tree than an ash, but this may have been purely a design choice by Game Freak. Referring back to the wildlife roaming through the world tree, we can find another distinction for Xerneas, not only for its dormant state, but its active form as well. Within the tree branches live 4 stags, feasting and scavenging along the tree, named Dane, Dvalin, Danir, and Durapur. Standing atop Yggdrasil, these 4 stags eat from the branches as their horns or antlers bring the dew down from the leaves to form the rivers of the many realms. Each of these stags throughout the years have been theorized to represent a variation between the 4 seasons, fall, spring, summer, and winter, the 4 elements, water, fire, wind, earth, or even the phases of the moon, new, full, first, and third quarter. No matter which source, we see that each interpretation points out that the deers are essential to the life of the realms as they bring the waters to them. If we look at Xerneas' antlers, we can see that they show 4 distinct colors. Mirrored from one another, we see orange, red, purple, and blue, sticking off at 3 points of each antler. We can presume that each of these colors represents the 4 deer of Yggdrasil. Of the varied interpretations, orange stands for the fall, earth, and the third quarter of the moon, red as the summer, fire, and first quarter of the moon, purple, the spring, air, and the new moon, and finally, the blue in Xerneas' antlers is the winter, water, and the full moon. Along with these 4 stags living atop Yggdrasil, many sources have mentioned that Greeks believed in a stag with golden horns who was often associated with the goddess of the hunt, Artemis. called the Xernean hind. This stag was sacred to Artemis and would be sought after Heracles in his third labor. Xerneas uniquely fits this look of the Greek stag with their golden and shimmering antlers, as well as being described in multiple sources as taller than a bull with hooves of bronze. It's that last part that's most interesting, as Xerneas is portrayed as having blades for hooves, looking similar to the Greek Xiphos, their sword. Along with this, and the stag of Artemis, is the connection to Xerneas' name, as sounding similar, or at least very close, to the Xernean hide, which may have been a blend of the Xiphos, potentially creating the more Greek-sounding name Xerneas. Something to note is that throughout not only Norse mythology, but with Greeks, Egyptians, and many others, the number 4 is extremely prominent, with Xerneas displaying 4 points of the X, 4 antlers, and even being quadrupedal. Its design is, at least somewhat, formed from number symbolism, as Hermes in Greek mythology is associated with the number 4 being born on the 4th day, along with the Egyptians having 4 sons of Horus, and so many others around the world depicting the same number 4 in their mythologies. Even Xerneas' opposite shares this attribute, but with the number 3. Nevertheless, any good researcher worth their salt needs to present and discuss their counterarguments. Xerneas' dormant state, as a tree marked with an X, and relating to Yggdrasil, is in fact a strong connection. However, the look of the world tree and Xerneas are vastly different, as Yggdrasil is shown filled with thousands of branches, leaves, and life. In their dormant state, Xerneas looks dead and decayed, vacant of any life. Additionally, the trees shown for both are 2 very different trees that are prominent in very different regions of the world, as the region for Pokémon X is based around France, and some of the American varieties aren't very prominent in that region. As for the 4 stags, these thoughts are continually argued, as so many interpretations and translations of the Poetic Eddas exist, and any could be plausible. As well, their color portrayal with Xerneas is mainly color association through what is mostly seen with the seasons, phases, and the elements. As an example, you would see blue with the winter, and you would see the red-hot sun with the summer, and so on. Finally, I'd like to address that Xerneas is the Pokemon of life, able to provide eternal life for any it deems worthy. However, not only is the tree in its dormant state a dead tree, but the stags on Yggdrasil, also mentioned in the Poetic Eddas, eat the world tree, typically being thought of as a nuisance for the tree itself. This may be because of a contrasting representation where the subject, Xerneas, is designed in relevance to the material, but instead represents the opposite. But again, that is something that I will cover in part 2. With all that said though, that's going to be it for today, folks. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration. I really do like making these videos and discussing amazing games and their connections to mythologies. If you have any suggestions for what you'd like to see covered next, or if there's anything that I may have missed, please let me know down in the comments. I try to take the time to read all of them, and it really helps me learn more about you all. Plus, if you really like what we're doing here, hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe to the channel for more great videos, so that you don't miss anything. But thank you again, everyone, and I'll see you all next time.